Good evening. Alfred Hitchcock didn't just introduce his show, he controlled it. The sponsor hated him, the censors feared him. And one episode, it got banned before it even aired. These are 20 weird facts about Alfred Hitchcock Presents. And the bonus, let's just say Hitchcock's silhouette wasn't always Hitchcock. Roll the tape. This gets twisted fast. Number 1.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new season.
Alfred Hitchcock didn't want to host the show. He was already the most famous director in Hollywood, fresh off Rear Window and preparing for Vertigo. When CBS approached him about hosting an anthology series, he said no, 3 times. He thought television was beneath him, a cheap medium for cheap stories. But his agent saw something else, money and control. They offered him a deal most directors only dreamed of. Complete creative authority, no studio interference, and a percentage of the profits that would make him richer than any film could. Hitchcock took one look at the contract and changed his mind overnight. But there was a catch. He had to appear on camera every week, introducing stories he didn't always direct. The network wanted his face, his voice, his brand. So, Hitchcock turned the hosting segments into his personal playground. He mocked the sponsors, insulted the censors, and delivered his introductions with such dry wit that audiences tuned in just to hear him speak. What started as a reluctant cash grab became one of television's most iconic partnerships. Hitchcock didn't just host the show, he became the show. Number 2. Those opening and closing monologues, they weren't scripted by writers. Hitchcock wrote them himself. Every single one. He'd sit in his office with a cigar, a glass of wine, and a typewriter, crafting jokes that walked the razor's edge between clever and cruel. He loved taking shots at the show's sponsor, Bristol Myers, a pharmaceutical company that paid millions to keep the series on the air. Hitchcock would introduce products with thinly veiled sarcasm, suggesting their ineffectiveness or poking fun at their advertising campaigns. The sponsors hated it. They complained to the network. They threatened to pull funding. But the ratings were too good. Audiences loved watching Hitchcock dismantle the very people who made the show possible. And here's the thing. Bristol Myers couldn't do anything about it. The contract Hitchcock signed gave him final say over all content, including his own segments. So, week after week, he stood in front of that camera and said whatever he wanted. Sometimes the jokes were subtle, a raised eyebrow, a pause in delivery. Other times, they were savage. And the sponsors, they just had to sit there and take it because Alfred Hitchcock was untouchable. Number 3.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new season of Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
The famous silhouette profile that appeared in the opening credits, the one everyone associates with Hitchcock, it wasn't always him. In the early seasons when production was rushed and Hitchcock was busy directing films, they hired a body double, a man named William. Hughes, an assistant director with a similar build and hairline, would stand in profile while a sketch artist traced his shadow. Hughes wore Hitchcock's suit, held the same posture, and even practiced the director's subtle head tilt. For months, audiences watched an opening sequence featuring a man who wasn't Hitchcock at all. The director found out halfway through the first season and was furious, not because someone impersonated him, but because nobody told him. He immediately ordered reshoots, insisting on creating the silhouette himself. But by then, the fake version had already aired dozens of times. Hitchcock being Hitchcock, he never publicly acknowledged the deception. He simply moved forward as if it never happened. And viewers, they had no idea. The silhouette looked like Hitchcock, sounded like Hitchcock's brand, and that was enough. In a show built on illusion and misdirection, even the host's identity was part of the con. Number 4. Censorship was a constant battle, but one episode pushed things so far it never made it to air. The story, titled The Sorcerer's Apprentice, featured a magician who used a guillotine in his act. During the climax, the blade actually worked, and the assistant's head was severed on stage. It was fiction, stylized, meant to be darkly comedic in Hitchcock's signature way. But the censors saw it differently. They flagged it immediately. Too graphic, too disturbing, too real. Hitchcock argued that viewers had seen worse in theaters. He pointed to his own films, to crime dramas, to news footage of actual violence. None of it mattered. The Standards and Practices Board refused to budge. They demanded cuts, reshoots, a complete rewrite of the ending. Hitchcock refused. If they wouldn't air it as intended, he wouldn't air it at all. So, The episode sat in a vault for decades, lost to time, a ghost in the archive. It wasn't until years later, long after Hitchcock's death, that The Sorcerer's Apprentice finally surfaced in syndication with a warning label attached. By then, television had changed. The content that once seemed too shocking had become quaint. But in 1955, that episode was considered too dangerous for American living rooms, and Hitchcock never forgot it. Number 5. Hitchcock didn't direct most of the episodes, but he controlled every single one. He hired directors he trusted, Robert Stevens, Paul Henreid, Arthur Hiller, and gave them detailed instructions before filming began. Camera angles, lighting setups, pacing, even the exact placement of props. Some directors loved the guidance, others felt suffocated. Robert Stevens once said, working for Hitchcock was like being a surgeon under supervision. You had the tools, the training, the talent, but someone was always watching over your shoulder, correcting your grip. Hitchcock would visit sets unannounced, watch dailies in silence, and send notes through assistants. If he didn't like what he saw, he'd reshoot scenes himself without telling anyone. The director would show up the next day to find their work replaced. It was brilliant and terrifying, because the show wasn't just executive produced by Hitchcock, it was micromanaged by him. Every frame had to meet his standard of suspense, his sense of timing, his dark, twisted humor. And if it didn't, it got fixed. The result was a series that felt cohesive despite having dozens of different directors. They all worked under one vision, one voice, one obsessive perfectionist who refused to let anything slip past him. Alfred Hitchcock Presents wasn't an anthology. It was a controlled experiment in fear. Number 6. The show's budget was impossibly small, but Hitchcock made it look expensive. Each episode cost around $20,000 to produce, a fraction of what Hollywood spent on feature films. To compensate, Hitchcock used tricks he'd learned over decades of filmmaking: limited locations, minimal sets, tight shooting schedules. Most episodes were filmed in just 2 to 3 days. Actors rehearsed extensively beforehand, so camera time wasn't wasted. Lighting setups were reused. Props were borrowed from other productions. And if a scene required an elaborate set, Hitchcock would redesign the story to avoid it. He believed constraints bred creativity. The less money you had, the smarter you had to be. And it worked. Episodes felt cinematic, polished, more expensive than they actually were. Hitchcock would block scenes like a chess match, positioning actors and cameras to maximize tension without needing costly effects. He'd use shadows instead of sets, suggestion instead of spectacle, and audiences never noticed. They didn't care that the show was cheap. They cared that it was good, that every episode delivered suspense, surprise, and a twist ending that left them thinking. Hitchcock proved that you didn't need a massive budget to make great television. You just needed vision, discipline, and a refusal to settle for anything less than perfection. Number 7. Alfred Hitchcock was terrified of his own show. Not the content, but the commitment. Hosting required him to memorize lines, hit marks, perform for cameras in ways he'd never done before. Hitchcock was a director, a puppet master, who controlled everything from behind the lens. But hosting put him in front of it, vulnerable and exposed. He hated the feeling. Before every taping, he'd pace backstage, chain-smoking cigars, running lines under his breath. His assistant director said Hitchcock would sometimes freeze mid-rehearsal, convinced he'd forgotten everything. They'd have to walk him through the segment word by word until his confidence returned. And even then, he never looked comfortable. If you watch closely, you can see it. The way he stands rigid, hands clasped, barely moving except for his eyes. That wasn't a performance choice. That was fear. Hitchcock masked it with humor, with timing, with his signature deadpan delivery. But underneath, he was battling anxiety every single week. Once, during the second season, he suggested using a narrator instead. Let someone else do the hosting, he said, and he'd just direct. The network refused. The show was called Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Without Hitchcock presenting, there was no show. So he kept going, week after week, year after year, performing a role he never wanted in the first place. Number 8. The show's most famous episode, Lamb to the Slaughter, almost didn't get made. The story, written by Roald Dahl, featured a woman who kills her husband with a frozen leg of lamb and then cooks the murder weapon, serving it to the investigating police officers. It was darkly funny, twisted, and completely original, but the network hated it. They said it made murder seem too casual, too clever, too easy to get away with. They worried it would inspire real crimes. Hitchcock fought back. He argued that the entire point of the show was to explore the psychology of crime, to examine how ordinary people could commit extraordinary evil. And besides, he said, it was fiction, a joke, a parlor trick with a punchline. After weeks of arguing, the network gave in on one condition. The episode had to include Hitchcock delivering a moral disclaimer, reminding viewers that crime doesn't pay. Hitchcock agreed. He filmed the closing segment with a smirk, telling the audience that the woman was eventually caught and punished. Even though the episode showed nothing of the sort, it was a lie, a compromise to appease censors, but audiences loved it. Lamb to the Slaughter became one of the most celebrated episodes in the series, proving Hitchcock right. Sometimes the best stories are the ones that push boundaries, and sometimes the censors just need to get out of the way. Number 9. Behind the scenes, Hitchcock played favorites. Certain actors got hired repeatedly, not because they were the best, but because Hitchcock enjoyed working with them. Barbara Bel Geddes, who appeared in Vertigo, was cast in multiple episodes. So was Vera Miles, who Hitchcock famously tried to turn into the next Grace Kelly. He'd offer them roles personally, bypassing casting directors, negotiating contracts himself. But if an actor crossed him, they were done, permanently. One unnamed actress showed up late to set twice. Hitchcock didn't yell, didn't argue, didn't even acknowledge it. He simply finished the shoot and never called her again. His assistant later said Hitchcock kept a mental blacklist. Actors he refused to work with, no matter how talented they were. Punctuality mattered, professionalism mattered, but loyalty mattered most. If you respected Hitchcock's process, followed his direction, and delivered what he asked for, you'd have a career. If you didn't, you were erased. It was ruthless and effective. Hitchcock built a stable of reliable performers who understood his vision and could execute it without drama. The show ran like clockwork because he eliminated chaos before it started. And in Hollywood, where egos and tantrums ruled, that kind of discipline was rare. Hitchcock didn't tolerate nonsense. He just made television history instead. Number 10. The theme music, that haunting, instantly recognizable melody, it wasn't composed for the show. Hitchcock borrowed it. The piece, Funeral March of a Marionette by Charles Gounod, was written in 1872 as a comedic orchestral work about puppets attending a funeral. Hitchcock heard it years earlier and fell in love with its playful darkness, the way it sounded both ominous and absurd. When the show needed a theme, he suggested it immediately. The network was hesitant. They wanted something original, something modern, something that screamed 1950s television. But Hitchcock refused to budge. He believed the piece perfectly captured the tone of the series, the blend of suspense and dark humor, the sense that nothing was quite as it seemed. So they used it, and it worked. The theme became so iconic that most people assumed it was written specifically for Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Even today, hearing those opening notes instantly conjures images of Hitchcock's silhouette, his dry voice, his twisted little stories. A 19th century composition about dancing puppets became the soundtrack to one of television's most suspenseful shows. And Hitchcock, he never paid a dime in royalties because the music was public domain, genius or theft. In Hitchcock's world, there was no difference. Number 11. Hitchcock despised method actors. He thought they were pretentious, self-indulgent, and exhausting to work with. During the 3rd season, a young actor fresh from the actor's studio showed up to set and started asking questions. What's my character's backstory? What's his relationship with his mother? What does he want in this scene? Hitchcock stared at him in silence for what felt like minutes. Then he said, "Your character is a man who says these lines. Now say them." The actor tried again, explaining his process, his need to find emotional truth. Hitchcock cut him off. "I don't care about your truth. I care about my camera." The tension was unbearable. The crew froze. The actor looked humiliated, but Hitchcock didn't apologize. He believed actors were cattle. He'd said it publicly and meant it. Not because he hated performers, but because he believed their job was simple. Hit your mark, say your lines, don't bump into the furniture. Everything else, the emotion, the psychology, the meaning, that was the director's job. Hitchcock blocked scenes to create feeling, not actors. And when method performers tried to inject their own interpretation, it threw off his carefully constructed machine. So he shut them down. Hard. That actor finished the episode but never worked for Hitchcock again. And Hitchcock, He never stopped believing actors should be seen and not analyzed. Number 12. The show's production schedule was brutal, but one episode nearly killed someone. During filming of Breakdown, starring Joseph Cotton, a stunt went wrong. The scene required Cotton's character to survive a car crash and lay motionless on a table in a morgue while doctors prepared to cremate him alive. Simple enough, but the prop department built the incinerator too realistically. It was supposed to generate smoke and heat effects without actual fire. Except during the take, something malfunctioned. The heating element overloaded. Smoke turned into flames, and Joseph Cotton, strapped to the table for the shot, couldn't move. He started yelling, breaking character, but the crew thought he was acting. 5 seconds passed before someone realized the fire was real. They rushed in, pulled him off the table, extinguished the flames before anyone got seriously hurt. Cotton was shaken, but uninjured. Hitchcock, watching from the monitors, calmly called for a 15-minute break. When they resumed, he reshot the entire scene as if nothing happened. No apology, no incident report, no acknowledgement of the near disaster. Just another day on the set of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, where even the props were trying to kill you. The episode aired without changes, and somewhere in that final cut, buried in the smoke and shadows, is the moment where fiction almost became horrifyingly real. Number 13. Hitchcock hated explaining his endings. He believed ambiguity was more powerful than resolution, that leaving audiences unsettled was better than tying everything into a neat bow. But the network disagreed. They demanded clear conclusions, moral lessons, justice served. So, Hitchcock gave them exactly what they asked for in the most sarcastic way possible. He'd film his closing segments with barely concealed contempt, informing viewers that the villain was caught and punished even when the episode showed nothing of the sort. His tone was mocking, his delivery dripping with insincerity. And audiences got the joke. They understood that Hitchcock was playing along with the censors while simultaneously undermining them. It became part of the show's charm, those final moments where Hitchcock would appear and deliver a punchline that completely contradicted the story you just watched. Sometimes he'd break the fourth wall entirely, admitting the ending was fabricated to satisfy network standards. Other times he'd describe elaborate punishments that were clearly absurd. Once, he claimed a murderer was caught, tried, convicted, and executed all within 2 days of the crime. The timeline was impossible. The justice system didn't work that way, but it satisfied the censors. Hitchcock was a master of malicious compliance, giving them what they wanted in a way that exposed how ridiculous their demands were. He followed the rules while making sure everyone knew the rules were stupid. Number 14. The show's success spawned a magazine, a series of anthologies, and a massive merchandising empire. Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery magazine launched in 1956 and is still published today, featuring short crime, fiction with Hitchcock's name plastered across every cover. He didn't write the stories, didn't edit them, barely even read them, but his brand sold copies, and that was enough. Book publishers approached him for collections of the show's scripts. Toy companies wanted to produce Hitchcock dolls, board games, even a mystery-solving kit for children. The director was amused and slightly horrified. He'd become a product, a logo, a marketing tool. His silhouette appeared on everything from lunchboxes to playing cards. And while he collected royalties from all of it, he privately questioned whether fame had gone too far. Once at a dinner party, someone showed him a Hitchcock Halloween mask. He held it up, studied his own grotesque caricature, and said, "Good God, do I really look like that?" His wife Alma replied, "Worse." The room erupted in laughter, but Hitchcock wasn't entirely joking. The show had made him wealthy beyond imagination, but it had also turned him into a cartoon character, a recognizable face divorced from the serious filmmaker he wanted to be. He directed Psycho and The Birds and Vertigo, masterpieces of cinema. But to most Americans, he was just the guy from TV who made creepy faces and told jokes about dead bodies. Number 15. One episode predicted the future in the most disturbing way. The Glass Eye, directed by Robert Stevens, told the story of a ventriloquist and his dummy. Throughout the episode, you believe the man is controlling the puppet. But in the final twist, it's revealed that the dummy is the real person, and the ventriloquist is actually a wooden figure being manipulated. It was surreal, unsettling, and completely original for 1957. Decades later, technology would make deepfakes, CGI doubles, and AI-generated performances possible. The line between puppet and puppeteer, between real and artificial, would blur exactly as Hitchcock's episode predicted. Some film scholars now point to The Glass Eye as early commentary on identity, performance, and the uncanny valley, themes that wouldn't become mainstream for another 50 years. But Hitchcock wasn't trying to be prophetic. He was just telling a good story. He found a script with an impossible twist and figured out how to film it convincingly. The fact that it accidentally predicted modern anxieties about authenticity and artificial intelligence was pure coincidence. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe Hitchcock understood something fundamental about media and manipulation that others wouldn't recognize for generations. Either way, the episode remains unsettling precisely because it feels too real, too close to something we're living through right now. In Hitchcock's world, the puppets always won. Number 16. Hitchcock's relationship with CBS was contentious from the start. The network wanted a hit show, but they didn't want the headaches that came with Hitchcock's creative control. He'd submit scripts that pushed boundaries, then dare them to reject it. He'd insult sponsors during tapings, knowing they couldn't cut him without destroying the show. He'd refuse notes, ignore feedback, and make unilateral decisions that left executives furious. By the fourth season, CBS had enough. They wanted out. But they couldn't cancel the show because it was still massively popular. So they did something sneaky. They sold the entire production to NBC, who eagerly picked it up and gave Hitchcock even more freedom. The network switch happened between seasons with minimal disruption. New sponsor, new time slot, same show. Hitchcock was delighted. He'd essentially been fired and rewarded simultaneously. NBC executives thought they could manage him better than CBS. They were wrong. Within a year, Hitchcock was causing the exact same problems, pushing the exact same boundaries, and NBC was regretting their decision just as much. But the ratings kept climbing, and sponsors kept paying, so everyone just dealt with it. Hitchcock had proven something important. If you were talented enough, difficult enough, and successful enough, you could get away with anything. The networks needed him more than they needed them, and he never let them forget it. Number 17. The show's writers were a mix of established authors and complete unknowns, but Hitchcock treated them all the same, terribly. He'd option stories, gut them completely, and rewrite endings without consulting the original author. Roald Dahl famously clashed with Hitchcock over changes to Lamb to the Slaughter. Dahl wanted more character development, more motivation for the murder. Hitchcock wanted efficiency. The argument lasted weeks until Dahl finally gave up. When the episode aired, it was brilliant, but barely resembled Dahl's original vision. Other writers had similar experiences. Ray Bradbury sold Hitchcock a story, then watched helplessly as it was transformed into something unrecognizable. Some authors refused to work with the show after hearing horror stories from colleagues. But others kept coming back because having Alfred Hitchcock Presents on your resume opened doors, and the checks were substantial. Hitchcock paid well, better than most television productions. He believed writers deserved fair compensation, even if he didn't respect their artistic input. It was a strange contradiction. He'd butcher your script, mock your suggestions, and completely ignore your intentions. But he'd also make sure you got paid top dollar for the privilege of being humiliated. And somehow, it worked. The show attracted incredible talent despite Hitchcock's reputation because everyone wanted to be part of something great, even if it meant sacrificing their ego. Number 18. During the show's 7-year run, Hitchcock directed only 20 episodes himself. Out of 268 total episodes, he personally helmed less than 10%. And yet, every single episode felt like a Hitchcock production. That was the genius of his approach. He didn't need to direct everything if he controlled everything. He chose the stories, approved the casting, supervised the editing, and most importantly, he appeared on screen introducing each episode. His presence bookended every story, making him the narrator, the guide, the master of ceremonies. It was brilliant branding. Audiences didn't care who actually directed the episode because Hitchcock's voice and face told them it was his. He'd found a way to maximize his influence while minimizing his workload. The episodes he did direct were often experiments, tests of technique or technology he wanted to try before using them in films. Breakdown was a study in minimal dialogue and sustained tension that informed Psycho. Lamb to the Slaughter explored dark comedy in ways that would later appear in The Trouble with Harry. Hitchcock used television as a laboratory, a place to refine his craft without risking millions of dollars. And when something worked, he'd scale it up for the big screen. The show wasn't just a side project. It was research and development for one of cinema's greatest directors. Number 19. The series finale was intentionally anticlimactic. After 7 seasons, 268 episodes, and countless cultural moments, Hitchcock ended the show with a simple announcement: no fanfare, no retrospective, no special episode. Just Hitchcock standing in his usual spot, thanking viewers for watching and saying goodbye. It lasted 90 seconds. Some viewers thought it was a joke, that a real finale would follow, but that was it. The show was over. Hitchcock later explained that he hated sentimental endings. Long goodbyes, anything that felt like emotional manipulation. The show had been fun, profitable, and successful. Why ruin it with a tearful send-off? Besides, he was busy. He had films to make, stories to tell, bigger ambitions than television. Alfred Hitchcock Presents had served its purpose. It made him wealthy, kept his name in living rooms across America, and gave him complete creative freedom during an era when directors were still fighting studios for control. But it was time to move on. A year later, he launched a new series, The Alfred Hitchcock Hour, with longer episodes and even darker content. Same host, same format, same twisted sensibility. Because Hitchcock didn't know how to quit. He just knew how to evolve, adapt, and keep audiences coming back for more. The master of suspense couldn't help himself. He had more stories to tell. Number 20. Alfred Hitchcock Presents changed television forever, but not in the way anyone expected. It proved that anthology series could work, that audiences didn't need recurring characters or ongoing plots to stay invested. It demonstrated that a strong host could unify disparate stories into a cohesive brand. And most importantly, it showed that television could be artistic, cinematic, and prestigious without sacrificing entertainment value. Before Hitchcock, TV was considered a wasteland, a medium for cheap soap operas and variety shows. After Hitchcock, it was a platform for serious storytelling. Networks started developing anthology series to compete. The Twilight Zone, The Outer Limits, Night Gallery, all of them owed a debt to Hitchcock's model. Directors who'd never considered television suddenly saw it as a legitimate medium. Writers started crafting stories specifically for the small screen. The show didn't just entertain millions of viewers, it elevated an entire industry. And Hitchcock, ever the businessman, collected his percentage while watching imitators try and fail to replicate his success. Because you couldn't just copy the format. You needed the vision, the control, the willingness to fight every network executive, sponsor, and censor who tried to water down your work. Hitchcock didn't play by the rules. He rewrote them, and television would never be the same. Bonus fact: Alfred Hitchcock's silhouette became so iconic that it outlived him. After his death in 1980, the image appeared in commercials, parodies, documentaries, and tribute shows. It became shorthand for mystery and suspense, a visual language everyone understood. But here's the weird part. The exact measurements of that silhouette were never documented. No one knows the precise angle, lighting, or camera position used to create it. When producers tried to recreate it for retrospectives, they could never get it exactly right. Something was always off. The chin too soft, the belly too round, the posture too relaxed. It was close, but not perfect. The original silhouette existed in a specific moment, captured once and then lost to time. Like so much of Hitchcock's work, it was unrepeatable, inimitable, and endlessly fascinating. A shadow that cast itself across television history and never faded. Even in death, Hitchcock kept his secrets.